I've never liked birthdays, especially not my father's. Growing up, I learned early on that some people are born into families, while others are just added to them. That's how I always felt, like an add-on, not the favorite, not the golden child, just there. My name is Cassandra, and I'm 37 years old, a single mom, a businesswoman, a woman who's been stepped on by the very people who were supposed to love me the most, starting with my father. He was never physically cruel, but that's the thing with emotional abuse. It doesn't leave bruises you can point to, just scars that echo in everything you do. My father, Richard, has always been a man obsessed with appearances, success, and control. He's the kind of man who could smile at a stranger and slice his daughter's self-worth in half with a single sentence. I have two siblings, Michael and Anna. Michael could have set fire to the garage and somehow still been praised for his passion and energy. Anna could miss family dinners for weeks, but when she showed up with expensive gifts and fake charm, she was received like royalty. Me, I could bake a cake, clean the house, and bring straight A's home, and it'd be dismissed with, "That's what you're supposed to do." I spent years trying to earn what should have been freely given. I enrolled in top schools, earned a degree, stayed out of trouble. When I got pregnant at 26, unexpectedly, yes, but not irresponsibly, I thought maybe, just maybe, this would change something. Maybe my father would see the strength it took to raise a child alone and finally be proud of me. Instead, I became his favorite subject of mockery. He called my son, Leo, a consequence, not a blessing. He told relatives I had ruined my life. At family gatherings, he'd smile for photos and whisper sideways comments like, "A child should have two parents, but some people don't think things through." He never said it to my face, but I felt it in every awkward silence. Every dinner where my contributions were ignored. Every Christmas where my siblings received thoughtful gifts and Leo got a dollar store toy. Still, I raised Leo with everything I had. He never once felt unloved. I told him the truth gently. Our family wasn't perfect, but he was perfect to me. I worked 2 jobs while finishing my MBA. I missed sleep, not milestones. I taught him kindness, discipline, empathy, the very things I was starved of. And even when he noticed the difference, how Grandpa never invited us over, how he laughed more at Anna's dog than at Leo's school awards, I shielded him. It's just how grown-ups are sometimes. I'd say, "It's not you. You're amazing." But deep down, I knew the day would come when he'd see it all too clearly, that no matter how much love I gave him, there'd be a moment when the rest of the family made him feel like an outsider too. That day came at my father's 60th birthday party, a grand glittering celebration he called his diamond year. He invited the whole family, caterers, colleagues, friends from golf club. He even had a custom stage built for speeches and a toast, and in that room full of champagne and legacy talk, beneath chandeliers and curated smiles, my father looked straight through me. Then he said something so cruel, so calculated, that even Leo flinched. But that moment, the moment he tried to humiliate us in front of everyone, he had no idea what it would trigger. He didn't know that would be the last time he ever looked down on me, not because I'd argue, because I'd rise. The invitation arrived in a glossy white envelope with gold trim, as if it were announcing the coronation of a king. Join us in celebrating Richard Carter's diamond birthday. 60 years of strength, success, and family. It was signed in looping calligraphy by my sister Anna, the self-appointed event planner and family diplomat. Of course it was her. She always had a flair for dramatics. and for making sure Dad looked like a saint to the outside world. The party was being held at the Carter Estate, our childhood home, now upgraded with marble floors and an outdoor wine garden. Formal attire, RSVP by the 15th. There was even a small insert asking guests to bring a meaningful memory or toast to share. I nearly laughed. What memory would I share? The time he compared me to a cautionary tale at my own baby shower. Or maybe the time he, jokingly, asked if Leo's father was just a one-night mistake. I placed the invite on the counter, fully intending to decline. I didn't need another reminder of where I stood in that family. But then Leo found it. His eyes lit up in that hopeful, naive way only kids have. Grandpa's birthday. Can we go? Maybe he'll like the book I made for him. My heart ached. Leo still believed in them, in him, despite it all. He just wanted to be part of something. He wanted to belong. So against my instincts, I said, yes. We went shopping that weekend. I helped him pick out a navy blue blazer, and I chose a deep green dress I hadn't worn in years. Something elegant, respectful, not too flashy. We bought a first edition copy of Dad's favorite author from a rare bookstore, wrapped it carefully with Leo's handmade card tucked inside, and I prayed. Not for praise or validation, just for a quiet, decent evening. One where Leo wouldn't feel invisible. One where I wouldn't have to force a smile while choking on old wounds. But deep down, I felt it, like the low hum of a coming storm. This party wasn't going to bring us together. It was going to show us exactly where we stood. The night of the party, the Carter Estate shimmered like something out of a luxury magazine spread. Valet parking, an ice sculpture of the number 60. A quartet played soft jazz beneath fairy lights that crisscrossed the garden. Champagne fountains sparkled under the chandeliers. It was everything my father had always cared about. Presentation, prestige, perfection. Leo held my hand tighter as we walked in, both of us dressed in our best. He looked so proud, so ready to be seen. I held on to that look for as long as I could. Inside, it was a carnival of curated affection. My sister Anna floated around in a floor-length gown, as like she owned the place, greeting guests with air kisses and warm fake smiles. Her husband Brandon was already on his second glass of wine, bragging about his new position at some hedge fund. My brother Michael, ever the golden boy, had an arm around our mother and another around his pregnant wife, soaking in compliments, like sunshine. Every 5 minutes, someone was thanking him for flying in from New York, or asking how he managed to stay so successful with such grace. And me, I was a footnote. Our mother offered a stiff smile and a hug that felt more obligatory than maternal. You look nice, she said, then quickly turned to greet one of her friends. Aunt Elaine gave me the classic up and down look and leaned in to whisper, "So, you're still not seeing anyone?" As though it were an infection, I refused to treat. Leo and I made our way to a small table in the corner, far from the action. No one really spoke to us. Some gave polite nods. Others pretended not to see. I noticed the gift table, stacked with luxury items, designer boxes, crystal decanters. Our modestly wrapped first edition looked almost out of place. Dinner was served on gold-trimmed plates. Toasts were made. People laughed too loud at Michael's stories, teared up at Anna's slideshow tribute, clapped enthusiastically as my father made his way to the stage. He adjusted the mic, smiling with practiced warmth. 60 years, he began. 60 years of building a legacy. I look around this room and see the results of a life well lived. A loyal wife, successful children, a future secured. I felt Leo sit up a little straighter, He was waiting, hoping. Dad continued, Michael, you've been everything a father could hope for. Ambitious, driven, reliable. Anna, your creativity and loyalty bring so much joy. Your work tonight was, as always, perfect. He paused, then gave a small shrug and smiled wryly. Of course, he added, not every branch on a tree grows straight. Some lean in other directions, but we learn to tolerate those too. A few chuckles rippled through the crowd. My stomach dropped. My face flushed hot. Leo turned to me, confusion written all over his little face. Mom, was he talking about you? I swallowed hard, blinking rapidly to keep the tears back. He didn't say my name, didn't acknowledge Leo, didn't even thank us for coming. Just a veiled insult, a cruel punch disguised as wit, and laughter. Always laughter. I reached for Leo's hand under the table. He squeezed it, not fully understanding the weight of what just happened, but sensing it nonetheless. I smiled down at him, the kind of smile that takes everything in you to fake. Because while everyone else celebrated, we were reminded, loud and clear, that in his eyes, we were nothing but tolerated shadows. I didn't wait for the cake. As the room erupted into applause and glasses clinked in celebration of a man who had just humiliated me in front of everyone, I stood quietly and made my way to the edge of the garden. Leo followed without a word, clutching his little blazer closed against the breeze. Inside, I could still hear the jazz band and the laughter. That sound would stick with me, like smoke in my lungs. I found him by the side of the house, lighting a cigar. Of course, my father always had a way of celebrating himself, while the ashes of others smoldered behind him. He didn't flinch when I approached. Was that necessary? I asked, my voice low, calm. He exhaled slowly. Don't start. You humiliated me. In front of Leo. He turned to face me fully then, eyebrows raised in mock surprise. Humiliated? Cassandra, you're too sensitive. I said what everyone already knows. I stared at him, stunned. What do they know? That I raised my son alone. That I've worked every day of my life without asking anyone for help. He sneered slightly, his mouth twitching with something between amusement and disgust. You made your choices. You got pregnant by some nobody who disappeared. And now you expect what? Praise for surviving your own mess. I felt the sting before he even finished. And that boy, he added coldly, he's not part of this family. Not really. He's a reminder of your failure. Every time I look at him, I see wasted potential. I took a slow breath, willing myself not to cry. I wouldn't give him that satisfaction. You've always seen me as less, I said quietly. Even when I was a child, he shrugged. Some people are just born heavier, emotionally. You've always been a burden. Your mother agrees. Even if she won't say it, I nodded. Not because I agreed, but because I finally understood. This man would never love me the way I needed. Not even close. I'm done trying, I said. He didn't respond. He just turned away and lit his cigar again, like I was nothing more than smoke passing through. I walked back around the side of the house, finding Leo sitting on a bench, arms crossed, head down. I sat next to him. He looked up at me with quiet eyes, his voice barely above a whisper. You don't need them. It hit me harder than anything my father had said. I wrapped my arm around him, pulling him close. You're right, I whispered back. I really don't. Something shifted in me that night. It wasn't rage. It wasn't sadness. It was clarity. This was the last time he would disrespect me. From now on, I would rise. And not for their approval, for myself, for my son, for everything they said I could never be. The morning after the party, something was different. The sun rose like it always did. The coffee brewed like it always did. But I was no longer the same. I wasn't licking wounds anymore. I was sharpening knives. For years, I'd walked through life with one hand stretched out, asking for love, for recognition, for basic decency from people who were never capable of giving it. That party was the final confirmation. I would never be enough for them. Not for my father, not for the family who stood behind him like props in a show. But I'd be more than enough for myself, and for Leo. What my family never knew, because they never cared to ask, was that I hadn't just been surviving these past few years. I'd been building. Between bedtime stories and double shifts, I'd quietly nurtured a tech startup, an idea born from necessity. It started when I created a budgeting app specifically for single moms, combining AI-powered tools with emotional wellness features. Something raw, something real, something useful. I'd coded most of it myself during sleepless nights, pouring every ounce of pain, frustration, and grit into its foundation. A friend from business school helped refine the UX, a single angel investor, a woman I'd met at a networking event, believed in the mission enough to get us to beta. And now we were 3 weeks from launching on a national platform through a partnership with one of the biggest fintech firms in the country. What started as a survival tool was about to become a movement, and the best part, my last name would be on it. Not my father's, mine. I changed everything that week, deleted the family group chat, blocked my father's number, ignored Anna's polite follow-up email about the misunderstanding. I even shut down the automatic holiday photo album we shared. There would be no more glimpses of Leo for them. If they didn't see his worth in person, they didn't deserve digital access either. Then, I got to work. I reached out to journalists, women in business, tech beat writers, personal finance influencers. I sent them a story, not a sob tale, but a power move. A founder who rose from rejection and emotional abuse to create a product that now had investors buzzing. I called in favors from old classmates who now worked at news stations and LinkedIn, live panels, booked 3 podcast interviews, scheduled 2 webinars, and locked in a pre-launch feature in a national digital magazine. I told Leo everything, not all the ugly parts, but the important ones. We're going to build something, I said, kneeling beside him. Something that matters. For us, and for people like us. He nodded with a grin. Can I help? Yes, I said, smiling. You already are. Every photo we'd taken over the years, birthdays, school plays, nights eating takeout on the floor, I started organizing them into a presentation for my brand story. Authentic, beautiful, ours. I didn't cry anymore when I thought about that party. I didn't feel rage either. I felt ready. Because revenge, I realized, doesn't always look like a dramatic confrontation. Sometimes it looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like success so loud, it echoes back into the rooms where you were, once ignored, and that echo, they were going to hear it soon. The day my startup launched, I expected a quiet trickle of interest, maybe a few dozen downloads, some social shares, a comment or 2. I was wrong. Within 48 hours, the app was trending on every major platform. Articles popped up with headlines like, "Single Mom Builds App to Empower Women." And it's brilliant, from overlooked to overachiever. Cassandra Miller's app is changing the game. One tweet from a major tech influencer went viral, saying, "This is what innovation looks like. Built from pain, coded with heart, created by someone who gets it." I didn't sleep for 2 days. Not because I was anxious, but because opportunity doesn't knock quietly. It storms in when you're finally ready to answer. I was invited to speak on a panel about women in tech, then another on financial wellness for underserved communities. Podcast hosts begged for interviews. One called me the unexpected unicorn founder of the year. But the most surreal moment came when a national magazine called The Visionary ran a profile on me titled Legacy Builder. Cassandra Miller is what the future looks like. They asked for pictures, so I gave them ones of me and Leo at his art show, reading books together, cooking pancakes in our tiny kitchen. They didn't just feature my tech. They featured my motherhood, my parenting, my son. He had started his own little art line, a mix of digital and handmade work that I helped him sell online. His drawings about family, kindness, and imagination were a hit on Etsy. One of them even made it into a gallery show for young creatives. People didn't just see me, they saw us. And for the first time, the world wasn't judging me for being a single mom. They were celebrating me for it. And somewhere, out there, I knew my father saw it too. Because suddenly, the family started reaching out. Anna sent a text. Saw your article. Dad's so proud. He didn't mean what he said at the party. Things just got emotional. Michael followed with a LinkedIn message. Congrats on the launch. Maybe we should catch up sometime. Even my mother sent a stilted voicemail. Your father. He's complicated, but he is proud, Cassandra. He just doesn't know how to say it. I didn't respond. Not because I was bitter, but because I no longer needed anything from them. Not their praise, not their explanations, and certainly not their revisionist memories. What could they offer me now that I hadn't already given myself? The media had begun drawing comparisons. Richard Carter built a real estate empire the old-fashioned way, but his daughter's digital legacy may outshine him entirely. There it was, the shift. He was no longer the center of the story. I was. And Leo, he was the beginning of the next chapter. We got matching necklaces that week. Just a simple silver charm each, engraved with our initials, and the words, built from love. At dinner one night, Leo looked up at me and said, "Do you think Grandpa sees us now?" I paused, then smiled gently. It doesn't matter anymore. He grinned. Because we see us? Exactly. And that was the power shift. Not just the recognition, or the money, or the applause. It was the peace of knowing I no longer had to prove anything to anyone, especially not to people who were never looking. It had been nearly a year since I'd spoken a word to anyone in my family. A year since the party. A year since I stopped begging to belong. Then, out of nowhere, came the message. Dad had a health scare. Mild stroke. He's asking for you. I didn't respond right away. I sat with it. Let it roll over me like a wave that couldn't knock me down anymore. Finally, I packed a small bag, dressed Leo in his favorite navy sweater, and drove back to the house I hadn't seen since that night. Not because I needed closure, because I already had it, but I wanted them to see what strength looked like. And I wanted Leo to witness dignity in action. We walked into the same estate that had once made me feel small. This time, we carried the room. Anna opened the door. Her eyes widened when she saw me, pristine in my tailored coat, my head high. Leo beside me, confident and calm. You look incredible, she stammered. We weren't sure you'd come. I didn't come for you, I said simply. Michael stood awkwardly in the hallway. Even my mother looked at me differently. Not with warmth, but with wariness. Like she could sense she no longer had power over me. They led me to my father's room. He looked thinner, paler. A man reduced, not just by age, but by the weight of his own choices. He blinked when he saw me. You came, he said, voice raspy. I nodded. Briefly, Leo stayed in the doorway, watching quietly. My father looked between us and mumbled, "You turned out better than I expected." I didn't flinch. I didn't thank him. "I didn't do this for you," I said softly. "I did it despite you." He looked away. No rebuttal, no grand confession, just silence. And that was enough for me. As we left, Leo reached for my hand. "You okay, Mom?" I smiled at him. Better than ever. We walked out without looking back. Sometimes revenge doesn't scream. It doesn't slam doors. Sometimes it just walks away, strong, whole, and finally free. If you're watching this and you've ever felt like the outcast in your own family, I see you. I was there too. I know what it's like to shrink yourself, hoping they'll finally notice, to exhaust every part of your soul, trying to earn love that should have been freely given. But here's what I've learned. You don't need to prove your worth to people committed to misunderstanding you. You don't have to carry the shame they placed on your shoulders. Not even if they're your father. Not even if they're blood. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is stop trying to be accepted and start trying to be exceptional. Not for applause, not for revenge, but for yourself, for your peace, for the people who are watching. You rise, quietly cheering, even if they're only 8 years old and sitting at your kitchen table drawing superheroes. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't loud. It's not public. It's private success, quiet confidence, and the freedom to walk into the room they excluded you from. And know you don't need anything inside it anymore. You are not a disappointment. You are not too much. You are not alone. Leo hugged me the other night after watching one of my interviews. He looked up at me with those wide, wise eyes and said, "You didn't just raise me, Mom. You raised yourself too." And he's right. I became the woman they said I couldn't, not to spite them, but because I finally stopped believing them.